Hola, again from Barcelona. Season 12 of The Great Indoors continues, and once again, we find ourselves at the center of the technology universe, MWC, where the future doesn't arrive gradually, it arrives all at once. So welcome to The Great Indoors, in a world where information is moving faster than meaning, where algorithms are creating our attention and increasingly shaping our decisions. We choose something different. We choose depth over noise, intention over trend, and stories, because stories are still the only way we make sense of it all. So I'm your host, Matthew Roberts, and as always, I'm joined by my producer, the one and only Larissa Yee. Now, we're halfway through the MWC season, episode 5 today, and if you walk these halls for even a few minutes this year, one thing is unmistakably clear, and I've said it several times already, it's no longer a headline, it's not even a trend, it's AI. It's the operating system of the modern enterprise. And few companies represent that shift more profoundly than one of our greatest customers, and I don't use the word great lightly, and that is AT&T, a business that has spent decades connecting the world and is now redefining how intelligence flows through it. And today's guest is right at the center of that evolution. Now, Mark Austin is the Vice President of Data Science and AI at AT&T, leading a team of more than 250 data scientists and engineers working across the organization. His remit is simple to describe, but extraordinarily complex to execute, turn AI into measurable business value. And with over 30 years at AT&T, Mark has lived the full arc of this journey. Beginning in network engineering through the big data wave to today's generative AI era, where billions of tokens are processed daily to drive efficiency, accuracy, and growth. And what's striking in this conversation is just how grounded that journey is. This isn't about hype. It's about governance. It's about ROI, it's about structure, and the discipline required to scale AI responsibly across an enterprise of this magnitude. So we talk, amongst many things, about the industrialization of generative AI, the emergence of what Mark calls super agents, and why the difference between chaos and value often comes down to something deceptively simple: rules, workflows, and of course, context. Because in a world increasingly driven by automation, the real differentiator isn't access to AI, it's how intelligently and how responsibly, more so, you deploy it. So from the floor here in Barcelona, again, surrounded by robots, code, flashing lights, you name it, this is my conversation with Mark Austin. So we're back, Great Indoors. What is it, season 12? It's 2026 here in Barcelona. Really excited to introduce our next guest, all the way from AT&T, Mr. Mark Austin. Hey, Mark.
Hi, nice to be here.
No, thanks for joining us. I know you've had a busy day. We know how busy the schedules are here, so I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. And just for our listeners, give a little bit of background on yourself, your role at AT&T, and your history to date.
Yeah. I'm currently the Vice President of Data Science and AI, and we work across the whole company. We're about 250 data scientists and developers that mostly are looking to help the business units with cost savings or revenue. We do a ton of projects. Probably about 85% of what we do now is Gen AI.
Of course.
Over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But not only do we do projects, but we also build the platform.
Right.
Which is Ask AT&T. So that's our generative AI platform that most of the projects run on.
Wow. Yeah. And how long have you been at AT&T?
I believe it or not, over 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're based in Dallas?
I'm based in Dallas. I was originally a radio guy, working network and RAN stuff. You know, it's at one point I was building models to predict network churn, and then we said, well, this is doing really well, these models, why don't we kind of do it everywhere? Yeah. So that's how we kind of did a data science for the whole company.
Cool. And you were part, I guess, of the whole big data, I don't know what the word is, evolution or revolution, like 15 years ago, right?
We started as big data, and now we're the chief data office.
No. Okay. Wow. So if you had to pick one challenge today in scaling AI across AT&T,
what would you say people are most underestimating?
Yeah. I'll give you the AT&T answer, but I think in general, if I was just to generalize it for a moment, the challenge kind of depends where you're at. So it feels like we're fairly mature. We're doing about, believe it or not, 27 billion tokens a day or words a day that are going through generative AI. But if you're just starting out, the way that we got there is we set up a nice governance and ROI. So everything comes in is kind of graded with ROI and stacked rank, and that's how we get through hundreds of projects.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we were 2x ROI in year. We're 5x ROI in year now.
Wow.
I would say where we're at in terms of the challenges, it's keeping the ROI growing, of course, but then it's, enabling some of these new technologies like the agents to help out in various different business units. So HR is all in on enabling agents for workflows and finance and business. And that's the new thing, I would say, making sure that we evaluate them appropriately, make sure they're doing the right thing, get the evals in place. That's the technical challenge.
Yeah.
But really it's enabling all those workflows to kind of keep the value going.
Cool. And what, from a partner, even like Amdocs, how Amdocs or indeed any other partner can help you on that journey as we go forward into the next year?
Yeah, well, you are helping now.
Yeah.
You're helping tremendously in fraud and a variety of other things. But, I think one thing we've been talking about, which we just talked about here, which is democratizing and building some of these things in a modular way.
Yeah.
So whether you're helping us enable an MCP to help billing disputes or something like that, those are always useful. But, it's getting the ecosystem in place, making sure that you help us build on top of it. Because the best thing about when you have an ecosystem or a platform, you get patterns and you don't have to start from scratch. So building on a modular would be very, very helpful, and you've been doing that.
Yeah. And what's the biggest, or what's the most important business outcome right now, other than just the ROI, as far as what you're concerned with, and how that's going to progress over the next 12 months?
I mean, there's two ones we're chasing. One, if I kind of go back to the volume, I mean, 27 billion tokens a day is a lot. Yeah. So you have to do that economically. And we've been doing a lot of fine tuning the models. The reason I love that is I think fine-tuned models are the only thing in life you can get better, faster, cheaper. You can get all three. You usually can pick 2 out of the 3.
Yeah.
But when you fine-tune them, you get the accuracy as good or better. By definition, they're cheaper and they're a lot faster. So that's one thing. And one thing we announced here at MWC was the open telco models.
Right.
Because the existing models, the frontier models, whether it's OpenAI or Claude, was only about 70% accurate. Yeah. So we need to get the accuracy up and we need to get the cost down. So if we start applying those on the network, you got to do it at volume. So getting really good at that is useful. And then if I go back to the agents, doing those at scale and kind of getting a pattern. I kind of like the terminology. I call it super agents.
Yeah.
So the super agent is kind of like an orchestrator that almost gets a dynamic to-do list, but making sure it's following the to-do list. So you don't have to hardwire the flow chart.
It's
very useful. So technically, we're trying to build those things, but it all goes back to the ROI. So we only do stuff if it makes sense business-wise.
Yeah. And it's all open source, right? What you're doing?
It's all open source. Yeah. Well, we're using open source stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Now, it's the first day of MWC.
That's right.
I haven't had a chance to really see much. Have you had a chance to see anything really interesting? And B, what do you hope to see this week in your time here?
Yeah. We announced the open telco models this morning. So I've been in that and a couple other network things. I'm just starting to walk around. There's some really cool robotic stuff that caught my eye. There was one, I sent it to my daughter. She's a TikToker. She's an influencer. And there was a robot that was doing this amazing kind of breakdance type thing.
Oh, really?
I was like, I'd never seen that.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I generally try to pick up is what are some key use cases or insights and clever things that people have been doing with AI that we can pick up and bring back to the company. So I'm keeping my eye out for those and hopefully I'll pick up a few.
Yeah, no, I've noticed that, the robotic thing. Just here and looking around in my sphere of vision.
Right.
It's almost like physical AI.
Physical AI, that's
and I'm going to check it out in more depth during the week. Now, what do you make of the phenomenon? Obviously, in the last month, 6 weeks, the stock markets have taken a hit. There's been all sorts of speculation based largely on things like Anthropic's Claude Code, Codex from OpenAI, and this whole notion of vibe coding. What's your take on that today?
So this is going to sound a little bit strange, but we're against vibe coding.
You're against vibe
We're
coding?
against it, but let me clarify that. We are for AI field coding. And you're going to say, what's the difference? So vibe coding is a bit unstructured. And think of AI field coding where you're doing it with context, you're doing it with workflows, and you're doing it with rules and skills.
Yeah.
So you're a lot more effective. You keep on standards.
Yeah.
And that's what we are for. And we're getting tremendous value out of that.
Yeah.
Vibe coding, if you let it go, unless you've got a really talented engineer, they're going to follow the right standards. They'll put stuff in a common way. And you don't introduce security vulnerabilities. So vibe coding is a bit Wild West.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't be effective on it, but you want to do it in a structured way. And that's where the AI field coding comes in.
Well,
and, when we're doing that, we're knocking projects out, stuff that is typically a couple weeks, you might do it in an afternoon.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing is we had a colleague of mine, Prince Balraj,
Right.
that he went in on something that was, I think it was an 8-week plan of what the development would be. And if he applied as AI field coding and these things that we have, the workflows and the rules and the skills, we call those archetypes.
Yeah.
So you give him these archetypes. He spent a week and a half building the context, and then it was another week after that. So he cut it down, close to 3 weeks, the 8-week thing. And it was just as good as what they had done before.
Wow.
So you really can do a lot there. And so we're very for that.
Yeah. That's the first time I've heard the term AI field coding.
Yeah, fuel
coding. Would it be fair to define that as almost like vibe coding, but with a little bit more, what's the word, rules and structure?
Rules, skills, workflows.
Yeah, and better prompts,
Yeah,
basically.
right. The vibe is a bit too Wild West.
Yeah.
And that's the way, like the structured thing.
Yeah.
Do it with standards and rules.
And what's the biggest challenge you're hoping AI is finally going to solve? If you look at all the problems or challenges you've had over the year, what are you not optimistic, but maybe speculating or hoping that it's going to potentially solve the moving forward? Because there seems to be like no limit, right? Everything is moving so quickly and surprising everyone.
Right. I think there's a few things we're chasing. The first one I would say is, getting these agents in a bit more structured way with evals and super agents so we can do them fast.
Yeah.
I literally, just to give you an example, we literally have over 100 workflows like in HR that we have to build. I don't want to do that as hand-drawn flowcharts. I want to do that a bit more structured.
Yeah.
And, the rest of the business do the same. So that one we want to really solve. The other one that is a bit more technical, one of the harder challenges, we have AI talking to documents. That's the RAG that we've been doing, right? AI talking to databases has been a bit of a challenge, and we've been focusing a lot on that. There's a leaderboard called the Bird leaderboard. We're number one on that. I think we're still number one on that.
Right.
Text to SQL. But doing that right can unlock a lot if I can reliably talk to databases.
Yeah.
But right now, it's a bit of a challenge. I have to give a lot of context. I have to tell it, what do these columns mean? What do the business rules?
Yeah.
What are examples? If you ask this question, here's the right SQL. There's a few shot learning. I think we're on the verge of maybe cracking that it doesn't need as much humans to create the context. We can do that itself.
Yeah.
The AI can build that itself. So it's a new technique. We're chasing that. If we do that, you can literally point at the database and it will learn it over time with reliability. So that's the one I'm hoping to unlock. You check with me next year to see if we do it.
No, I think we will. And it's like that. 'Cause the way I always think about it is like the big data was always about trying to go after unstructured data. So stuff in documents or stuff that wasn't in neat columns. Like that was always the challenge.
I want to go after the structure too, but do it reliably. That's really hard. It's maybe easy with one table, but if you've got 10, 12 tables, you're asking a question and you have to join multiple tables together and reason over it. If somebody hasn't named the columns, exactly how you might think about that if you're, in AI.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
So it's really cool. And we talked about AI in the concept in the context of AT&T and how it's, improving business outcomes and giving a good ROI. And you mentioned your daughter before as a TikTok influencer. By the way, she could do a plug for us at the Great Indoors and put that on.
I'd love to see you love that.
But it's how, for you as a family man, as an individual, how's it making an impact on your life outside of AT&T? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, for people that love to code and hobby, it's hard to put it down when you go home.
Yeah, all right.
And then it doesn't help when somebody launches Claudebot or OpenClaw, you get a new toy to play with.
Yeah.
You got to set it up in a safe way to let it explore. But I love that. I'm building a variety of projects at home as well. But it's a lot of fun. You just got to balance the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't cut into family too much.
No, it's the conversation I had earlier. I have 4 children and they're all using the AI tools in very different ways without a manual, without an instruction book. They just pick it up. They figure out what's going to work for them.
Yeah.
And they have to stick within the boundaries of, well, you're not allowed to do this for schoolwork, and you're not allowed. And then they're being quite creative how they're like the AI natives, right?
Yeah.
That I think is really wonderful.
It's getting so good. You can literally talk to it and you can build an app.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so I can't imagine what the kids of the future are going to be able to do with this.
And you've been in this for a long time, Mark, 30 years. And is this
It's never been more exciting. Traditional machine learning was getting a little bit old, and then ChatGPT came in and it was exciting. And then, the agents are coming in and you got the models getting better and better. It's just phenomenal what they could do.
Yeah. And one last question, and then we'll do our quick fire front round.
Sure.
And it's just a personal thesis of mine, because when I first joined Amdocs 13 years ago and I was living in England, I did the marketing for big data, that big data hype and boom. And the one question we were always asked, or people would speculate and prophesize about this, well, what's the use case? What's the killer use case for all this data that we're collecting?
Yeah.
It's generative AI. We kind of came the models that exist, the intelligence that's now, and the outcomes. That's because of big data. That was the use case they were searching for, but couldn't articulate at the time. Would you agree with that statement?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the standard machine learning was incredibly useful. I mean, we took it, we applied it to fraud and literally, reduced that by 80% or something like that. Understanding all of the things that are happening and tying them together. That's traditional machine learning. So there's lots of applications there. Yeah. Network has been using that for years to optimize the network. I kind of, I listen a little bit to some of the stuff now is, agents to help tune the network and stuff, which we're doing. But if I think back to my early years, we were doing that 12 years ago with self-optimizing networks. Right? So that was...
predictive maintenance was another
predictive
one.
Predictive maintenance,
right? Yeah. So really, what's really happened since 2022 is it's just come into the mainstream. Like you said, you were using it for business enhancements, improvements, optimizations, efficiencies, but it's been kicked up a notch by all the hype and everything else. I think that would be a fair thing. I always, whenever you speak to anybody from like Google or YouTube, they're like, no, we've been doing it forever.
Yeah. Well, if you think of it, we started with structured data with all the machine learning and data frames, and then we got Gen AI. Now we can do it unstructured data. So now you have both tools.
Exactly.
Right, and now you can talk to it and you can build amazing things with code, which is fantastic.
Great. Okay. So what we do now, Mark, just to end the podcast with a bit of fun, learn a little bit more about it. It's always a nice way to bring it to an end. And you probably would never have imagined in a million years that you would be asked these questions at MWC. Okay. That's why we're different, you know what I mean? So this is our TGI to go round. Okay? And I'm going to give you 2 choices. You're just going to tell me your preface.
Okay.
Okay? And then maybe we'll explore why that's your preface, but we'll see.
TGI to go.
cats or dogs?
Dogs.
And do you have dogs?
I have 2.5. I have 2, and I have my daughter's dog most
right.
of the time.
Yeah.
It's almost 3 dogs.
What breeds are they?
They're golden doodles and cockapoos.
Wow, cool. And you miss them when you travel, right?
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next one. You're going out for dinner tonight. Obviously, we're in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Would you have a glass of cava or a sangria? Or a third option? Because I would choose neither, to be quite
I would
frank.
probably have a soda.
Yeah, okay. That's it. I was like, I'll probably have a beer, I think, if I was still awake. Okay, back in Dallas, are you a baseball guy or a football guy?
Football.
Cowboys.
Cowboys.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. It's. But what about soccer?
Soccer, we're going to have the World Cup,
Yeah,
so you almost
yeah.
have to be a little bit into it.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on that. I have some real soccer fans on my team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they're volunteering for it and everything. So
Because you've got games at the AT&T Stadium, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This one's probably more appropriate than I thought it would be after you told me about your daughter. But Instagram or TikTok?
She does both. She started off with TikTok. She got like almost a couple million followers
Wow.
on TikTok.
Well, you'll have to show me.
Instagram, she's on Instagram as well, YouTube. But yeah, I watch them all.
And what's she talking about?
She's a musical theater, so she dance, act, and sing. And that's kind of what comes out on the TikTok and Instagram. All 3 of them.
And we need to talk in a second. We have a big common thing here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'll tell you about it in a second. It's quite interesting. Now, you're going out for dinner tonight. You're going to have a soda, but would you have steak or tapas?
Probably tapas.
Yeah? Have you had any yet?
I had some.
Yeah, we went out last night. This is really great place at the top of the Ramblas.
You have to tell me where.
I'll tell you where it is.
Yeah.
I think it's the best.
Good.
Anyway, Mark, I really appreciate you joining us today, taking the time just to have a different kind of conversation.
Yeah,
I'd love to invite you back in the future and we
Sure.
can check some of those things.
Check on the predictions.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So thank you, Mark. Really wonderful speaking with you today. Thank you for taking the time in your crazy, hectic MWC schedule to come and speak with us on The Great Indoors. Really, really enjoyed your conversation. And it was, I think what's really different is the practicality and the implementation in a way that exceeds hype and expectation and delivers real business value. I think that was what was the most striking to me. So thank you very much. Now, for everybody else, we return next week for season 6 at the halfway point, as it were. We've made the journey to home. We're making the turn now in this season 12. So thank you for staying with us, and we look forward for you to join us next week. Remember, all back episodes, videos, a cornucopia of illustrious assets are available at amdocs.com/The Great Indoors. Remember to follow us, to subscribe, to like, and even leave a glowing comment if you feel so excited. I don't know if you do. But with all of that said, I'll see you next week. I'm Matthew Roberts for Amdocs in Barcelona, and have a great day wherever you are.